Hey guys, it's Bruce. Welcome to Convocourses podcast. Once a week, we talk about cybersecurity, GRC topics, and we're going to talk about it again. I'm going to start off by answering a question somebody sent to me earlier. Let me see if I can bring that up real quick. Been getting comments on YouTube. And as I'm bringing this up, just to let you guys know, I'm just a regular cybersecurity dude. I've been doing this for a while, and I'm just sharing what I know and my experiences throughout the years to help people get into this field. If you have any questions whatsoever, it's my only skill set. And so I'm open to any questions that you have about this. Now, I've got folks on YouTube who watch me, on Facebook, on TikTok who watch me on a regular basis. This is my perspective based off of my own experiences, so I'm not going to get everything right, but I do my best. And really, it's just a community. At the end of the day, it's a community of like-minded people who are kind of going in the same directions, ships passing each other in the night and helping each other out along the way. So here's a comment question that I got from someone. They said, "Hi, Bruce. I'm studying the IT section of the CPA. I didn't even know that CPA had an IT section. One of the things I talk about a lot on this channel is how many other industries have their own IT perspective, like the financial industry. In this case, CP. This person's a certified public accountant, and so there's an IT section. I had no idea. They said, I have limited background in IT education since I've been majoring in accounting. And they said CPA exam section ISC discusses cybersecurity and corresponding data STDs, regular standards, data standards, regulations, and frameworks. And a lot of the videos that you discussed on NIST use a lot of the videos that discuss NIST use a bunch of fancy words. And yeah, that's one of the problems with this is people use like a lot of insider words and terminologies and then don't explain it rather than just using layman's terms and to make it more accessible to everybody. Like if I was an electrician, if I wanted to be an electrician and I went online and I was listening to on TikTok or on YouTube, listening to somebody talk about electricity and they're using all kinds of voltage I don't understand, or like it would be better if they just explain what's going on. And that's what happens with a lot of GRC, NIST, and cybersecurity in general. People have all of these, they're using a lot of academic words when they could just use regular words to explain what's going on. Okay, anyway, let's go keep reading this. They said, I've already seen your NIST CSF podcast videos, and it was beneficial for someone like me who knows nothing about cybersecurity, and I am not required to go in depth with this. They need to know a mile long and an inch deep on the concepts. They just need to understand the concepts. So without your podcast, I would have needed to watch 5 supplemental videos to understand one main supplemental video. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like sometimes when I'm trying to understand a very complex topic, one example would be like cryptography. Like one that I struggle with that one. So I have to watch 2 or 3 different videos about it to understand one concept. One simple concept. Or if I'm watching some science video, like I'll really want to understand quantum computing or quantum, discoveries, and I don't, they're using too much jargon. I can't understand it. So I got to watch all these other videos to understand one simple concept. That's what he's saying here. So he said, in my opinion, your discussion was way better than most lectures on here. And wow, well, I appreciate that. So that's exactly what I'm going for. I'm just trying to talk to everybody and make this more accessible. Like at some point you go deeper in this and you're going to learn the jargon. You're going to get deeper into it. At some point you have to learn the jargon, but in the very beginning stages of it, when you're trying to understand something for the purposes of getting through it, and your main topic is CPA, you don't really need to go a mile deep in this thing just yet. You just want to understand it. And so that's my audience right there. That's who I'm speaking to. And so it says, if you could maybe cover the NIST privacy framework video, that would be appreciated. Well, I could cover it a bit here. That's not my main NIST privacy. NIST privacy. There is a NIST privacy framework. It has they have their a separate framework for privacy. Most of my work has been with NIST 800 risk management framework, and even ISO 27001 and some NIST CSF. So I could speak to privacy on those a little bit. So I'll speak to it a little bit here, maybe make a more intense video in the future. So let's break this down using basic terms and just understand it in a way that if I can understand anybody, I feel like anybody can understand it. So let's get into this. So first of all, let's talk about why is privacy important. Obviously, it's all of our information is, if you go to the hospital, you don't want the fact that you whatever ailments you have, you don't want that published everywhere. You want you're trusting the hospital, the healthcare system to protect your information, to protect your x-rays, to protect that stuff, right? That's part of privacy. Now it's patient privacy, but it's still privacy. If you in the government sector, no different. In fact, it's even more intense. It's very important that they protect our information. Like if you go and get some sort of federal card, SSN, for example, social security number here in the US, it's very critical that you protect that information. And so that has a whole bunch of things that's supposed to happen to protect that information. And that goes for retail sector, that goes for hotel and restaurant management, that goes for any sector that you could think of, has to protect your information. And let's identify what that means. Your privacy is not just social security number. It's not just your personal phone number. It's an association of your identity, your first name and last name, that's associated with where you live, your phone number, where you work, and also, of course, your social security number. Also, who your family members are, where you've lived in the past, where you work. All of those things are like fingerprints to identify who you are. And the reason why things like your first name and last name associated with where you live, for example, are important is because somebody could take those two bits of information and extract more information. Like right now, do an experiment. Put your first name and last name with the state that you live in. Just first name, last name, and city. City's even better. Put those together in YouTube or in Google. Search it in Google, search it in Bing, and see what you see. Unless your name is John Smith or Mohammed, like some kind of very common name, more than likely just the first name and last name, and the first name, middle initial, and last name, and city is going to come up with some very alarming information. Using just those two bits of information, somebody can extract where you lived before, what was your previous phone number, who your spouse is, who your kids are, who your mother and father are. Just using that bit of information, somebody can get more information from you, especially if you live in the United States. Other countries don't have it as bad as we do because we rely very, very heavily. The more a country relies on information, the more critical it is that they protect the privacy of their citizens. Countries like Estonia, who's very, very reliant on data and information and technology. Countries like China, countries like Korea, countries like the UK. All of these countries rely very, very heavily on information. So our information is everywhere. If you've ever bought a home, if you've ever had credit, if you ever started a business, oh my God. All of those things are ways to extract even more information about you. And what can a hacker do with that information? They can do whatever the hell they want. And to be honest with you, the biggest risk isn't hackers, it's companies. Companies are scraping and even purchasing your information from other companies and using it to call you. You ever wonder why the hell when you're getting called about some new business venture or they want to sell you a house or give you a loan or sell you something, right? Where did they get that information from? They either bought it from another company, they scraped it from another place off the internet for free, or paid some company to scrape the information off the internet. They got it from somewhere so that they can call you and know that your name is XY, your name is John Smith, and you live in Oklahoma City, and you bought this house 2 years ago, or your spouse is Jane Doe, right? All that stuff is available on the internet. All right, so that is called PII, personally identifiable information. Any information that you could put together that can identify who you are, separate from anybody else. It's very important to protect it because one bit of information or 2 bits of information can come together and gather even more information that can make you more and more vulnerable, or even your kids or your spouse or whoever more and more vulnerable if your information's out there. And even if it's associated with you, they can find out who your kids are, find out and they could use it for anything, like not just to identity theft. They could use it to try to sell you things. They could use it to know whether or not you need to buy a certain thing, which, you know, there's different levels of threats here. So that's why it's important to protect PII. So beat that into the ground. So how do we protect it? How does a government, how does a healthcare industry, how does banking, how do they protect this information? Well, first of all, there's laws. There are laws in place, believe it or not. Maybe they're not stringent enough. Maybe they could go a little further to protect you. When you go and Google your name or whatever in the city, you can see all your information out there. Maybe they're not doing enough, and that's true. They're not doing enough. There's countries like countries in the EU are getting together and trying to do like GDRP or some other laws and frameworks and standards to protect you, the consumer, in that country. If you happen to be a citizen of the EU, then they have extra protections for you. If you happen to be a citizen, if you happen to be in California, they have these extra layers of protection for your privacy. Now, are companies doing them? Some of them more effectively than others. So there's other things as cybersecurity professionals that you should know about that do help to protect your organization's employee information, customer information, senior leadership information. There's things that are supposed to be in place to help protect people's PII, personally identifiable information. So one of the ones that I can really speak on happens to be the NIST 800. And I'm just going to briefly talk about how the NIST 800 is designed to help protect privacy. They've recently changed it, like within the last, when I say recently, we're talking about GRC. So recently, like within the last 6 years. They've recently done things to protect people's personally identifiable information. They've changed the entire they've actually updated it to Rev 2 for NIST 837 went to Rev 2, and they integrated privacy into the entire risk management framework process. Risk management framework process is a fancy way of saying, how are we going to manage our organization's level of risk? And what do I mean by that? So let me explain that real quick. There's no way to have 100% protection on any information, whether you're at the bank or healthcare system or retail. If you go to the store, go to Walmart, buy sheets or whatever you're doing, there is no way. Listen, there is no way to have 100% protection on everything. That said, and you shouldn't be worried and oh, I'm going to get hacked and whatever. Listen, there's no way to have 100% security. It's impossible. What we can do is limit the level of risk. We can limit how much exposure systems and data have to threats. So what I'm saying is there's no 100% proof. There's no way to 100%. This looks like when you walk down the street. There's nobody on earth that is 100% protected from having an injury or being hurt. If you breathe, if you're watching me and blinking, there's a level of risk of something happening at any given time. There is a level of risk. That risk might be very low that a meteor is going to hit your house, but but there is a risk. It just comes with existence. It's a part of this. So the best thing we can do is manage the level of risk. And that's what risk management framework is all about. Let's limit the amount of risk that we as an organization, we as a nation, we as a company, or you as an individual have. How do you limit the risk? That is what risk management framework is about. Risk management. We're managing the risk. Now, how do we manage the risk is what NIST 837 is all about. This is specifically for government systems, right? So it's a very stringent, it's a very long process. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to implement it so a lot of small organizations are not doing this unless they're public entities. That means that they're owned by the government. So it's a very expensive process because they have so many layers and controls and all these things you have to go through. And nobody knows everything, right? Nobody knows everything. All of us knows little bits of it because it's just so gigantic and it takes so much time to do. It's just very exhaustive. And the reason why it's exhaustive is because literally other countries are attacking each other. There's a war going on right now between countries. They're trying to steal information and trying to integrate and trying to infiltrate different parts of countries. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just human nature. This is the nature of us as human beings. We're always trying to get a leg up on the other person. We're very tribal. This is just how we are, right? It just comes with being a human being. So the reason why the government has to be so stringent is because there's so much going on. They have to protect every single part of their system. And that should make you feel a little bit of comfort that that these federal organizations in the United States and other countries are all trying to protect as much as they can, protect your information. They don't do a perfect job at it, right? You hear about hacks all the time happening, but they're trying to limit the amount of attacks that are they can't limit the amount of attacks, but what they can do is limit how many attacks can be successful. And that is what risk management is all about. So now let's talk about privacy. I'm trying to wrap all this into privacy. This will make sense in a second. So privacy is integrated into the NIST 800 process. Privacy is a part of it. So one of the main things they did was they changed the name of it. So this didn't used to have privacy in the name. Now it does. Rev 1 was called, let me see if I can find Rev 1. I'm going to be unsuccessful because I'm doing this live. But okay, here it is right here. So look at this. Check out this difference. So here's the name of revision 1 of the NIST 800. It's a guide for applying the risk management framework to federal information systems. A security lifecycle approach. That's the name of it. Now check this out. When they implemented revision 2, they put security right in the name of the title, and there's a reason for it, and I'll explain it in a second. Risk management framework. Here's the new name for Rev 2. Risk management framework for information systems and organizations, a life cycle approach to security and privacy. Every part of this updated system includes privacy. One of the main things that they did was they put privacy right up front. So in the very beginning of the process, you have to think about privacy. Even when in the very beginning, when you're thinking, okay, we need a system. As soon as you say that, as soon as you even think about a system, you got to consider privacy, because privacy is treated as is treated as special information, which it should have been from the very beginning, but it just recently started getting exploited on a level that's concerning, very, very concerning, right? And this is within the last 15 years that this has been happening. So keep in mind, they've had privacy laws all the way back to 1970s and this 1960s, all the way back. So this is not a new thing, but they've had to get more and more in the weeds and granular on how they actually address it, because it's just gotten ridiculous. So they put privacy right up front. So as soon as you think about even creating a system, you've got to think about, how do we protect all the sensitive information that includes the privacy? How do we protect privacy from the very beginning? Right when we say we're going to design system A, how do we protect the privacy on this right from the beginning? Right. So that is one of the main things that they changed with the NIST 800. And that's NIST 800 controls all talk about privacy. If there's a way to integrate privacy in the AC controls, which is access control, in the IA controls, which is identification and authentication. If there's a way to talk about privacy, there's a way to integrate privacy in every family. And some of them don't have nothing to do with privacy, but most of them, there's a way that you can integrate it in some way. Even like MA controls, which is like maintenance controls. There's a family of maintenance controls, like how, if somebody is going to come in and fix this system, what are we going to do with these, how does that happen in the organization? What's the process of how that happens? Even them coming, like you have a maintenance crew come in, you have to think about privacy. How we want to take into account even the privacy of the contractors who are going to come in to fix this system, right? Even we're not going to, for example, if they come in on a visitor's log, we're not going to put their social security. We don't need their social security number, right? We just need what organization they work for, what time they came in, their name. Maybe that's it. And when they leave, we don't need too much. We don't need their personal, where they live. We don't need their personal phone number. We don't need, like, maybe we even say do not put that on this form, because we don't want no privacy information. We're thinking at that level. Every aspect of our organization, we're thinking about, how can we protect privacy? Not only privacy of the employees, but privacy of our customers, privacy of the contractors that we're working on here. We're thinking about it at every step of the way. So that's where NIST 800 Rev 1, NIST 837 Rev 1 differs from Rev 2, and also NIST 53. It updated, same thing. The whole name of it changed, and they put privacy right up front. It's addressing each one of the control families, and in each one of the control families is saying, okay, what can we do to protect privacy here? What can we do to protect privacy here? In every single control family, you're thinking about privacy. So that's the main difference. Now let's talk a little bit briefly, and I'm seeing questions pop up here, and I will address them in a second. But I wanted to show you guys something else here. NIST has a privacy framework, and I just want to briefly show you this to give you an idea of what it looks like and just introduce you to it. So here it is right here. If you go to the NIST publications, nist.gov, you can find this. And it's just to help organizations out. It's not mandatory for federal organizations or systems or critical systems to use this. It's just a tool to help you to manage the risk of privacy. And so I just want to show you what this looks like and kind of give you a bird's eye view of what it means to your organization. All right. So first of all, it's just tool. It's very similar to how they did the NIST cybersecurity framework, in that it's not mandatory. It's something to help you out. And it's just open source. They put it out there. It's for anyone to use, not just federal government. Okay. So one of the things that they did here is they broke it up very, very similar. In fact, exactly like they did the NIST CSF, in that they have a core group of controls and functions. They have a profile, and then they have implementation tiers, and just an overview of how this works. So the core breaks down different controls that an organization should have. Every organization should, for example, identify what privacy information they have, and then every organization should have controls in place to lock the privacy down, to protect that privacy. And then profiles. This is the same thing they do in this CSF. Profile is, where does the organization want to go? What's their goal, right? Is their goal to make sure that they don't collect any privacy? They limit how much PII information that they take from customers. What is their goal and where are they right now? And what they want to do with profiles is say, here's the ideal picture of where we want to go, and here's where we are. Here's how we go there. That's what a profile is. And then tiers is tier implementation tiers. Specifically, what it's talking about is level of effort. And in this CSF, it has like 4 different levels of effort. The first one is like, we did the best we could. Right? It's like, okay, we made a profile, a policy document that states that we will protect privacy data, and then that's it. Right? I mean, maybe that's the first. Maybe that's all they can afford. Maybe that's all the time they have. Maybe they don't have the experts to do it, so they just did the best they could. Best level of effort. And then the 4th tier is like, not only did they do everything that they're supposed to do, but they went a step further, and the process is improving every year. So you have tier 1 through 4, where it's different levels of effort, and those levels of effort are dependent on a couple things. Number 1, how many resources do we have? How many knowledgeable people can do this, and how much money do we have to do it? What can we do? Like, we're doing the best we can. And then all the way to level 4, where not only are you've got the best people, you've got funding for it, but every year you're getting better and better and better, and testing yourself and getting better and better. So levels of effort depend on what your resources you have, what knowledge you have, and then time, like how much time did you put into it. So it's for everyone. So the NIST CSF, just like how they're doing this privacy thing, privacy actually is very, very similar to how they did CSF. It's making it so that it's very inclusive. So even if you have very little funding, very little time to do it, very little expertise, you at least did step 1. You at least did what you could for your level of effort, tier 1, right? So that's in a nutshell what the core, the profile, and the implementation tiers are. Now let me introduce you to the core, because this is probably the most important part of it. And I like this little diagram that they have here, where they overlap. They're showing a clear distinction between cybersecurity risks and privacy risks. Cybersecurity risk associated with cybersecurity incidents arising from a loss of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That's basic cybersecurity. But that includes things like, if we got hacked, how do we respond to protect our secret information and stuff like that. Privacy is a little bit different in that it is associated with privacy events arising from data processing, meaning we were just doing our normal job. We're just doing our normal processing, our normal business, our normal mission, and we're processing information. We have to collect the privacy information from our clients, which includes where they live, their first name, last name, middle initial, and their social security numbers. But something happened to where that information leaked. It wasn't hacked. It wasn't, it wasn't necessarily hacked, but it leaked where it wasn't supposed to. And why is that? You can clearly see there's an overlap where these two things are not mutually exclusive. Like they can have, both things can be true. And in the middle here, they're explaining cybersecurity related privacy events. Like, not only were we hacked, but they hacked into private information, PII. For this happens an awful lot. So there's a lot of overlap between cybersecurity risk and privacy risks. So what I wanted to show you though here is this bit here. You can go way in the weeds on this. Maybe I'll do a video where I break all this stuff down. The core stuff is what I want to show you. It's interesting. So they break it down by, just like the CSF, they break it down by identification of the controls. Let me see, where is it? Man, I just passed it. They break it down by identify, governance, control, communicate, and protection, which is very, very similar to how the NIST CSF works, where they're going by functions of an organization. Every organization should identify assets, for example. Like assets are the important things that are used for the organization to do their primary business and mission. If you're an insurance company, probably your main business function is going to be to gather clients who have a need for insurance. So we have to protect, of course, protect our client information, right? So we're going to identify what is our main function and then what are the main assets that we need to collect their information and then to protect that information that we collected. And then when we process it, so we have insurance sales people out there on the floor or who are having to gather that information. What are we using to protect their information? So we got to identify what assets we're using, what systems, what are we using to protect that information. So that is what we're doing in the identify section, identify function of the NIST privacy controls. And then governance speaks to the leadership, making sure that everybody knows what's going on and everybody is on the same, singing from the same sheet of music, so to speak. Everybody is on the same page. That's one of the things that they do in management. Man, there was a better page here, and I'm trying to look for it. I'm kind of slipping through this thing that broke down the privacy. Let me just see if I can find it real quick. Okay, here it is right here. Identify. Okay, so these are the core functions of the NIST privacy framework. I'm just going to go through a couple. So identify, what are we doing? We're identifying the systems that process that data that's inventoried. Another thing we're doing in identify, we're categorizing the people who the types of information that we're gathering the information from. That would be customers, employees, consumers, things like that. And then there's another functionality here. Let me see if I can show you another function besides identify, because we're identifying types of data, types of users, types of business environments that will be processing or collecting that privacy information. So you can see that it's targeting the system from the perspective of privacy specifically. Governance. Okay, here's one. Governance. We're going to develop and implement organizational governance structures to enable an ongoing understanding of the organization's risk management priorities that are informed by the privacy risk. Let me just explain that in layman's terms. So what they're saying here is the organization needs to have some plan forward that all of us can agree on. So they come up with a policy, an overarching policy that says, here's how we treat privacy information. Here's why. Here's the information that we're gathering. They might even identify what type, because if it's a retail, it's going to identify it differently than a government, than a healthcare, right? All of them are going to have their own categories, and they're going to probably target different things. Like retail is probably going to target mostly credit card information, right? That's probably the most in their minds. That's the most. I mean, because that's their business. Whereas healthcare, they're targeting electronic patient information, which is also tied to privacy. So in the policy, in governance, what we're doing as an organization is we're saying, okay, we need to focus on this type of information right here, and here's how we're all going to protect it. And at their level, they have to address the HR department, they have to address the IT department, and then if it's insurance, the guys on the floor who are collecting the insurance information, the guys who are gathering the sales, they have to write a policy that addresses all of that and gets everybody together on the same page to address how we as an organization protect privacy. That's governance. And it breaks it down. It has different subcategories of how you would go about doing that. So that's the real cool thing about the NIST CSF, the cybersecurity framework of the NIST, and then also this privacy one that focuses specifically on privacy, where they're going down like saying, okay, what are the roles and responsibilities for privacy? What are the privacy roles and responsibilities, and how do they coordinate with third-party stakeholders? I'm reading directly off of their thing here. It's literally guiding you through the process of how you would what you as an organization needs to do to make yourself a really solid privacy program, a privacy risk management program. So the NIST CSF does this in its own way. It's not going into this level of detail. And the NIST 800 also does this in its own way. And most frameworks do something like this. From the CIS V8, it does address privacy to some extent. The NIST 800 risk management framework addresses security, privacy, and ISO 27001 addresses privacy. HIPAA, healthcare stuff is all about privacy. Patient information, which is privacy information. So that, in a nutshell, is what we're talking about with the NIST privacy framework. And I hope that makes sense. I just wanted to explain it in a way that that's accessible to all of us, right? Because not all of us are doing this every day. Not all of us are. So there's no need for me to use a bunch of crazy jargon that I don't even understand fully, right? To impress you guys. All right, so let me address some questions. I'm seeing some questions from YouTube, from TikTok, and from LinkedIn. So let me address the first one that I got here. I don't even know if it's a question or comment. Let's see. William says, "Hi, Bruce. I just got a job as a network and system admin, and it's cool. I'm doing an assets list to get familiar with it. That's awesome. How does being a network and system admin translate to an information system security officer work?" So, how does it translate? Where are I'll talk about the differences and the similarities and how we really need each other. Well, the cybersecurity people definitely, I could tell you, definitely need the network and system admins. All right. So first of all, what are the differences? Let's talk about it. So a system administrator is normally somebody is holding the company down, their operations down. They're making sure that everything is going as smoothly as possible. If something breaks, they're out there fixing it. If the enterprise is acting up, like the network structure they got to figure out why and how can we fix it. A lot of times they're sitting back, especially if the organization's network is good, all the systems are working properly. They're kind of sitting back waiting for something to happen a lot of times, unless there's like a huge thing that we have to do to upgrade the system. Then they're like, okay, well, we got to do what we got to go to this place. We got to go to do a site survey. We got to make sure everything's good. But other than that, they're kind of just sitting back waiting for stuff to break. Like if nothing's broken, they're chilling. Like they're just collected a paycheck, you know what I mean? But when the shit hits the fan, they got to be ready. They got to be on their P's and Q's. They got to know what the hell's going on. Something that they do day to day is monitor the a network guy is going to monitor the traffic, make sure everything is good, make sure all the networks are doing all right. So they're monitoring all the systems. A system admin is doing the same thing, but for servers. So they might have Red Hat servers on Linux. They might have a database server, based server. They might have a Windows, Microsoft based server. They might be working in cloud technology, but they're monitoring the network, making sure everything is good, maybe taking calls. If there's tickets that come in, they're working those, going down the list of tickets to fix things that need to be fixed. That's their main job. That's their day-to-day job that they're doing, right? Security wise, ISO, Information System Security Officer. Let's talk about that. So there's a lot of different names for this. ISO is what's used in the government. The U.S. government uses the term Information System Security Officer, but it's another word, a way of saying security guys, information security guys. What do information security guys do? It depends. It's a very broad field, but let's specifically talk about the ISO role. So And that's what I currently do. That's what I've been doing for a long time. And I can tell you, it really varies from organization to organization. I've done everything from being in the weeds with the system admins, where I'm actually helping them to do some operations, or helping them to implement things and looking at the security side and being hands on, all the way till just being like a security secretary. I'm basically just doing documentation right now. That's kind of what I'm doing these days. They want me to make sure that the organization has proper documentation. I'm doing a lot of vulnerability management stuff, putting out fires. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. So it depends what you're doing. Let me just explain like what my day looks like right now. So what I do right now is mostly vulnerability management. That's one of the things I'm doing. So a vulnerability comes in, and I've got to first of all analyze whether or not it's even a vulnerability, because some things are not. Sometimes it's a false positive that came from a scanner. Sometimes it doesn't pertain to your system because you don't even have X, Y, and Z component, and it's you got something coming in that says that you're vulnerable, but you're like, oh, we don't really have this, right? So you're sorting the wheat from the chaff a lot of times. So it's just like a lot of information coming in, and we're going through it saying, okay, is this relevant to our system, or is this garbage? Right. So that's part of the job that I'm doing every day. And what tools that I use? We use network scanners. We sometimes people out of the blue contact me about something that may pertain to our system, and I've got to say, okay, is this our system or is this another system? And I got to go coordinate with this other person to see if this is their system or our system or what's going on. So that's one of the things I do. Another thing I do is create plan of action and milestones, which is like, we can't fix it right now, but here's how we're going to fix it. And I've got to do those. I got to coordinate with this or that other organization and stakeholder to see how it's going to be fixed, when it can be fixed, and what are the resources we need to get this thing fixed. It's a lot of meetings. So I'm doing meetings. I'm doing what's called continuous monitoring. I'm monitoring the vulnerabilities, monitoring different risks that might have threats or risks that might be relevant to the industry I'm working in. If it's the healthcare industry, there might be some hacker group that's attacking my type of healthcare system. So that's another thing we're doing, is continuous monitoring, vulnerability management, a lot of meetings, and preparing for assessments, going through assessments. That's the kind of work that an ISO is doing. So what does that have to do with a system administrator? So a security person, GRC security person. Now there's other kinds of security people. There's firewall admins. There's there's cybersecurity analysts. There's cryptographers. There's forensics guys. There's many different, but we're talking specifically about a GRC type position, which I do. I rely very, very heavily on the system administrators in my current role, because I'm not an administrator at all. I don't have privileges to do it. I'm not fixing things. I don't have access to anything. I'm basically a glorified secretary, at the end of the day. So, and I'm not saying that with pride or anything. I'm just stating facts. I just put together meetings. Probably a better explanation of what I do is like a program manager. I do have to know security stuff, but I'm not in the weeds. I'm not touching systems or anything. So, I mean, the closest systems I touch is like I'll mess around with the scanners. I'll mess around with some of the inventory systems. I'll mess around with some of the log SIEM devices, but I don't have administrative privileges. I can't change things. I have to ask somebody's permission to I'm not used to this kind of limitations, right? Usually they have some kind of trust in me, doing stuff, but now I'm not. I'm a program manager. I'm an advanced program manager. That's what I'm doing right now. So I rely very, very heavily on the network engineers, the network administrators, the system administrators. I rely very heavily on what I have to work really closely with them. They're very, very important to me, because I can't do what I do without them. If I get bad information, right? I couldn't do it myself. I don't have access to anything. So I have to get it from them, right? I have to work very, very closely with them. So that's my relationship with them currently. And it's vice versa. Like those guys, sometimes something will happen where it's security related, like it'll be a vulnerability on a system. And they'll come to me and say, "Hey, we really need this functionality right here, but we're seeing this vulnerability. Bruce, what do you think about this? What is your take? Is this violating anything that we should know about?" And I'll take a look at it and say, "Well, you know, it's let me see, let me do more research on this." So that's one of the things that they'll need me on. Another thing that they might need me on is to help with like network diagrams. Sometimes they'll come to me like with a net. They'll say, "Okay, here's a network diagram. Does this have what you need?" Another one is assessments. Like during assessments, I play a critical role because I'm a part of that. Like I have to interpret some of the stuff that's coming through on assessments. I don't have all the answers, so I got to work directly with them, and we have to work together as a team. So that's kind of where the symbiosis between the network administrator, system administrator, and a GRC type cybersecurity person come together, like where we're having to work together to get things done. And they need me for certain things, and I need them for certain things. So that's where I Is that better? You guys hear me now? Is that better? Can you hear me now? Test, test. Hold on a second, guys. Having some sound issues. Yes. Okay. Okay. I'll continue. So the question was the last question I had from TikTok. Somebody said, "What's your take on IT government contracting jobs?" And what they said was, what I was saying was that I currently work in a government IT job, and pros, the good things about it is that it pays. They usually pay well, especially in certain parts of the country. The bad things are that the jobs are volatile, meaning they could just let you go, especially if it's like a 1 year contract or a 6 month contract or something like that. They can let you go at a drop of a hat. It really depends on what the client, what the customer wants. Like if they don't like you, they could be like, I don't like this guy, and they'll just replace you. So it's volatile, but it pays well. I would say it's really good for somebody who, like a younger person who doesn't really rely on the check as much. Like if you have a family, you got kids, people relying on you, mortgage payments and stuff like that, then, it can be very stressful because you're in and out of jobs and you bouncing from one place to another. Um, so that's my take on it. Not bad, but it definitely comes with it has a price. What are your thoughts on Appian? I don't know what that is, so I'm gonna have to skip that. Sorry. Um, yeah, they said they can hear me now. Really? Yeah, they said that several people are saying they can hear me, so it's good. It hasn't caught up on yours yet because it's delayed. Let me see. Another question here. Somebody said, should a CISA be my next cert? I am at WGU and will get other certs, but certainly holds and currently hold a security plus, a security and a network plus. So should I get the CISA? CISA is a great certification. CISA is an awesome cert. Currently, my supervisor has a CISA, and my last few supervisors have had a CISA. So a CISA is definitely incredible. Now, what I will say is if you happen to be a college student, if you're in school right now, don't wait till you get your degree or certification to start getting experience. Right now is when you want to start any way you can. So that means what I mean by that, and I know WGU is online, so you're not going to be able to go on the campus and talk to them and say, I want to help you do images for the campus or whatever. I get that. But what I'm saying is put your profile online right now. And for your degree, just tell them you're working on your degree. You're working on your master's, your bachelor's, right? You'll be done in 2026, 2025, whatever the case may be. Put it on your right now, put it on your profile and don't just put it on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not even my best resource for jobs, to be honest with you. Mine would be Dice, Monster have been my top two that I've gotten jobs from recently. But other ones would be Career Builder. That's a good one. Indeed. Start putting your resume out right now and try to look for internships and apprenticeships because they're looking for students all the time. Because what they want to do is take you in and then get you some on the job training and train you into a role. So as a student, you have a great advantage over people who are not going to school or people who are just getting a certification. Take advantage of that student um, role that you have right now or that title as a student because What they're really looking for when you get that degree is experience, to be honest with you. And so now is the time to get that experience. Any experience you can get as a student, just start working on it now. Let me see here. Let me kind of go through this thing, scrolling through, looking for more. Okay, here's a question or comment. Somebody said, "What is your opinion on Simone B's videos on YouTube with people making a six-figure salary overseas, government tech, only by having a security plus and a TS secret clearance?" I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name, but right, but I know exactly who you're talking about. So it's possible because I did it. So I not with just a security plus, but now I don't know. I'm not sure. No, no. Okay. The answer is yes. Like it's possible. This is not impossible. And let me break it down for you. So number one, overseas jobs are difficult. They're difficult because they're asking you to be away from your family for months and months at a time. Because a lot of times you can't take your family, right? And you're going to be going to places that are not. It's not like you're going to be going to France, right? You're not going to be going to Paris. You're going to be going to places like Kuwait, right? I'm not saying this is a bad place or anything like that. I'm just saying it's from your lifestyle. For most of our lifestyles, probably not going to be. It's not in line with your lifestyle in more cases than not. Oman, you'll be going to places like South Korea. You'll be going to places like I've had fun in these places. These are places I worked that I had a great time. I met great people. But it's just you're away from your family, and sometimes you can't bring your family there. You can't bring. I missed my kids' first steps working with the military. It's difficult. I was actually a serviceman at the time. What my you're gonna be with you're gonna be with the military sometimes. You're gonna be working right alongside of them. And it's not just the military. You've got Department of State. I think you could work for them. There's different government agencies you work for. But if it's a TS clearance, normally it's going to be government or intelligence. Now, about making six figures, yes, you can. Not only that, but it's tax free. And six figures, not even that much money, to be honest with you. And the way they work you, like you're working 12 hours a day. Like the one thing they probably don't explain is that look, listen. Let me just show you the pros. And the pros, obviously, you're making six figures. It's tax free up to $98,000. They pay for your dinner and lunch and all that stuff, and sometimes even pay for you to live somewhere. They give you money to pay to like live you in like a dorm type thing. So you're gonna be saving crazy money. They also take care of your medical for you and your family who's back in the States. Now here's the cons that they probably not talking about in there. You go there, you're away from your family for months and months at a time. Upwards of some people are there for years away from their family. I don't know how the hell they do that, but some people are there for years. You're working shift work. Shift work means that you're working 12s or 13 or 14-hour shifts. I was in Kuwait. We were working it's supposed to be 12-hour shifts, but by the time you get there and leave, it's more like a 14-hour shift because it was far away. So you had to commute back and forth and all that kind of stuff. And they didn't count that into how much money you made, by the way. That extra 2 hours was not. Let me see. It's shift work. You're away from your family. It's usually in kind of a harsh environment with all these extra rules. So there's that. And another thing is that six figures is not. Now I know this is gonna sound crazy, but six figures is not enough. Unless it's high, mid six figures, something like that. Because a friend of mine was also over there. And my man's not even he doesn't have a security plus. He was making like 90,000. He was a personnel security guy. And He was making like 90,000 with no security plus, but I think he had a secret or a top secret clearance. So he's working shift work, and he could probably pull doing something similar. He could pull. He probably gonna have to move to another place, but he probably could have done the same thing here for like 70 or 80, working 8-hour shifts. And if you think about the hours, if you think hourly, he's probably making more here. Now you got to factor in the tax-free stuff. Okay. Now, when you factor in the tax-free stuff, it's not even close. So if that's what your aim is, then go for it. Save money, get yourself, pay off debt, go over there, do your thing. But be aware, you're going to be away from your family if you have family. You're going to be working shift work. It's going to be a harsher environment. If you can deal with all of that stuff, then these jobs do exist. They do exist, and it's a great way to level up too. Because one of the things I did as a risk management framework, guys, I got tired of risk management framework. It's just boring. It was just boring. I've been doing it for like 15 years. I was like, I want something else. Somebody approached me. They saw my resume. I was a risk management framework guy, and so like they contacted me and said, "Hey, we got this job in another country, but it's doing cybersecurity analyst work. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, read the description. I'm like, damn, I get to do all this stuff. I was doing a packet analysis and working with IPSs and IDSs and working with SIEM devices. I had never done that stuff before. So I was like excited. And I went over there and I leveled up my career. I was able to add a whole bunch of components. I ended up doing SIEM engineering there. I was building SIEMs from scratch. A SIEM is a security information event manager. I was building them from scratch, setting them up for 2 or 3 different environments. And I was taught on the job training how to do this. I had my own lab where I'd put it in a lab, see if it worked, and then we put it in production. It was so much learning. Like I learned so much stuff doing that. And then how to create content, it was a great way to level up. So it does exist. It can happen, but there are minuses. Just if you do happen to do this, just keep in mind is it's difficult. That's all I'm just is not easy. But if you're trying to get that money, then it's worth it, especially trying to level up and stuff. Let me see. What do you think about government contracting? I've been doing it a long time. As a worker, there's another aspect of it that you should probably look into, especially if you're on the more skilled side. If you've been doing this for a long time, is actually going on SAM.gov, making yourself an LLC, and creating a DUNS number, and actually creating the contracting work. Like you could do this. Like it's out there for you to do. There's a bunch of hoops you got to jump through to do it, but there's a bunch of YouTubers who talk about how to do it. And it's possible, bro. Because I've been in talks a couple times about doing it myself. Like people would approach me and say, "Hey, could you do this work with you?" They're gonna do it with me with my business, and I'm working directly with the government, no middleman, and they're paying way more money. So it's possible. Like you're talking about going from 6 figures to possibly millions. Like because you're the business that they're going to. So you'd have to pay other people, you know what I mean? Like you'd be managing the contract and stuff, but I think it's awesome. It's a great opportunity. Government contracting is a great opportunity for people like you and I. So go for it. Let me see. Got some more stuff here. William says, the way you break things down and make it simple, I'm learning how to fight from. Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Let me see here. I'm trying to. Looks like they want me to verify. Okay, here we go. Let me see here. Do you have a roadmap, like a roadmap of getting to IT work? So the way I break down how to get from point A to point B is I'd have to know like where you're at. If I know where you're at, I could tell you how to get from point A to point B. It's relevant because if you work in the healthcare industry, it's going to be a different path than if you work in healthcare. If you help work in healthcare, it's going to be different from the financial sector. And then where you're at, as far as like what do you do, what's your level of competence with IT work? I have a different answer for every person because the roadmap depends on where you are, where you start. If that makes any sense. Let me see here. Miss CY. Do I know Miss CY? Is this somebody I know? This might be somebody I know. So do you have specific landscape management plans that are system specific? I don't have, you mean like downloadable policies and stuff? I don't I don't have I've got a bunch of free templates for excuse me, for you guys who didn't know, I've got a bunch of cybersecurity uh templates and stuff that you can download on convocourses.com. Bunch of free stuff there. Convocourses.net is where I got a bunch of deals and a bunch of discounts and a bunch of free stuff and all kinds of things for every level of person. So I don't have any specific downloadables if that's what you're asking. They're pretty broad when you download those NIST 800 documents, and I don't know if that's what you're talking about. So I'll leave that one alone. Keep going here. She said, "Thanks. I had 2 internships as a sec engineer. Cannot find GRC internships. Start off with security engineering, and you'll get in there. And remember, like you're building up your GRC profile. You're building it up, and you want to focus on documentation and standards. It's counterintuitive in that most people think, oh, the more technical I am, the more people are going to want me. The more I can routers I can break down and build up and back up. The more switches, the more GRC is different. So they want to know that you can guide an organization. You understand the frameworks. That's really what they want, and that's the hard piece. That's really, even for me, like I've been doing 20 years and sometimes I'll read it and I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? And I have to interpret, and the organization's looking at me to interpret it. And I'm reading it 3, 4 times. I'm like, what do they mean here? And sometimes it's like, I know I have an interpretation of it, but they have a different interpretation of what this security control or whatever means. So I would have gone a different direction with it, but I've got to work with the organization to guide them in the right. Bottom line is what they want to see in GRC profiles to get the GRC jobs. They want to know that you know standards like PCI DSS, if that's the industry you're working in. If you're in retail, hotel, restaurant management, they want to know they have GRC people in hotels and in retail. Walmart has GRC people. They have to know PCI DSS, which is protection of credit card information, right? Healthcare industry has their own GRC people that focus on HIPAA. They want to know that you know how to interpret HIPAA to protect their healthcare business. You see what I'm saying? So government is what I mostly focus on, which is NIST 800, NIST cybersecurity framework type stuff. And so that stuff is what they want you to know. They want to know that you know the process and how to interpret uh, how to interpret the federal laws so that they can be compliant with the federal laws. They meaning the department of whoever organization you work. That's what they're looking for. So if you could do documents and policies and procedures and you understand the NIST 800 in that industry, that's what they're looking for. It depends on the industry that you're working in and in country too. Because every country has their own laws. Like if you happen to be in Europe, they use GDRP, ISO 27001. They use a different set of laws. So it depends on what country and what industry that you're working on. And that's the stuff you need to put on your resume. You need to show that you understand the standards, the laws of that industry or that country or whatever, wherever you're trying to work. Somebody said Korea is lit. I had a great time in Korea. It was one of my favorite places to. I lived there for over a year. I loved it. I loved the food. I loved when I was there. The people were great. I mean, I had a great time in Korea. But if you're working there as a contractor, you don't have your family, it's just hard, you know. So do you bring can't you bring your family with you? It depends. Okay, so let me we're talking about for the purposes of people who just got in or the podcast or if I ever clip this thing up. What we're talking about is if you're working government contracting overseas to like level up or to make that money or to get tax-free status or whatever. And yes, that is real. I did it before. I know tons of people who did it. It's a great way to level up. It's a great way to make money. It's a great way to make lateral moves in the different fields that you want to do. If you're a help desk guy and you want to do firewall stuff, that might be a great move for you. If you're like a network engineer guy and you want to do GRC work, if you're a GRC guy who wants to do cybersecurity analyst work, that's what I did. I was able to go overseas and do that. It was fire. It was great. That's what we're talking about. But they're bringing up certain things. They said, so you can't bring your family with you. So let me explain. So I'll give you an example of one of the places I went. Kuwait. I was in Kuwait. I was working directly with the government. They paid for me to stay someplace. They paid for my food, lodging, all that. They paid for me to have lodging and food. Could I brought my family? I could have. I could have, but it's in Kuwait, and so Kuwait has very strict laws about, they have very strict religious laws there. So my family, and my wife at the time was wild as hell. Like there's no way her crazy ass, literally and figuratively, would have been able to fit in that place with my kids. No way. Maybe the current situation I have right now, I could have done it. No, I'm sure I could have done it. But with that situation I had at that time, no way I could have done that. I mean, so is it possible? Yes. So you could get your family some kind of visa. And that's the thing. Like you have to go through the laws of you're out now. The government, the company that you're working with is in that situation on that contract. They were not bringing people's families. Let me just they were bringing the families of very high level execs. So if you are a high level exec, I think that they had a contract where they would bring you and your kids or whatever, and you live in some house somewhere that's in some, I don't know, on the base or whatever. I don't know. But me, I was a low level worker. So they were paying for me to go there and they had a lodging for me to go there, and anything else I would have had to pay for. I would have had to go through the Kuwait government to get my kids and my wife at the time a visa to go there, and I would have had to have a reason to go for them to be there. And I looked into it once, and one of the visas that I found was a work visa. They had a work visa that you could bring your significant other over there. And at the time, to be honest, I don't know how the environment is now, but it wasn't really. I would not bring my wife. I would not bring a female who I cared about to Kuwait at that time. I'm trying to be as nice as possible, but I would not. It just wasn't. I didn't feel like it was safe for women. I don't know how. I don't know what nice way to put that. I just don't know. I just didn't feel like it was safe. I just, there was too many things happening at that time, and maybe they've gotten better there, but at the time, man, I could tell you some stories that would scare the hell out of you. It was not a good place. I think if you were I don't want to talk shit about Kuwait because I mean, I don't want to talk. I'm not trying to talk shit about the people or anything. It's a great culture. It's beautiful people, but I would not bring my family there to live. I mean, there's a couple places in the Middle East that I think that I think would be like Dubai or like maybe yeah, Dubai would be one of them. I mean, that's the only. uh, I'm sure there's a couple other ones, but that it's just I wouldn't personally bring. But are there other places you could bring, like Korea? I could have brought my family to Korea. Um, that was a possibility. Even as a serviceman, I got sent there, but they didn't allow you to bring your family. But they told us how we could bring our family, so I could have brought my family when I was in the military there. But I would have had to pay for it out of my own pocket. And I at the time I was like an E1 or E2 or something. I wasn't making money like that. So the answer is yes, you can, but it's going to come out your own pocket and there's risk involved. Um Somebody said, "Brother, do you have a podcast? I've got to get tapped in." So yes, I have a podcast. It's called Convocourses podcast, and I just talk about these are the topics. I'm actually on the podcast right now, as a matter of fact. This is the podcast, and I talk. People ask me questions. Sometimes I'll have people come on, and very rarely, but I'll have a person come on and help me out to tag team some of the questions. I'll have another cybersecurity professional come on and stuff like that, or ask them questions about how they got in and what they're doing and things like that. I meant working for the government overseas and things like yes, yes, I know exactly what you mean. So working for the government overseas, working for the US government as a contractor overseas, that's what I'm referring to. I did it. It's possible. You can do it. It's tax free over there. Um, Working for another government, I've never done that before. But I've been approached by companies outside the government. I mean, from other countries, I've been approached by not necessarily governments, but companies outside of the U.S. I've been approached by them to work for, but I can't speak on that because I don't have experience on that. What advice would you give for building network besides LinkedIn? Okay, good one that my man Ryan brought up before, and I don't know why I never thought about this before, but he brought up like that's why I need to have more guests on here, man. He brought up the ISSA. It's a great way to net. When we talk about network, we talk about actual people, not like network engineering. Um, ISSA, which is Information System Security Association, Information System Security Association. I think that's what it is. I used to uh, be very heavily involved with this organization, and it has some of the best, if not the best, um, networking that you can do in IT. And this is an organization that brings a bunch of cybersecurity professionals and IT professionals together and discusses, I don't know, everything from vendors to job fairs to learning different things about new technologies. They'll have different things every month that they would come up with. It was awesome. And let me just show you my screen if you happen to be watching me on YouTube. Here's the one in Denver. They have one in every state, and most major cities have it. And they have like an event like every like maybe 2 times a month or once a month. It depends on the chapter. Each city, major city or state will have like their own chapter. Here in Colorado, there's two that I know of. There's one in Colorado Springs and one for Denver, but there might be more. There might be one for Pueblo or some other ones for like Boulder or something like that, because we have a couple major cities here. Yeah, but here's a few things that they have. Like here's one for a couple of events for March, three events for March, one in the afternoon, one in the evening, and you just register for it. And I think that they have like membership. They allow you to come in for free for a while, and some of them have like membership fees, and it's not even that expensive. And I think it's totally worth it if you're really trying to do this. It's a very, very good way to network. And just all you do is type in your city, whatever you happen to be in, and then just type in ISSA, and you'll find a group near you. Join one of these. It's super rewarding. You can find mentors there. You can find, oh man, like-minded people who are doing the same thing you're doing. All kinds of jobs. You name it. It's great, great stuff. Let me see. Sound issues. Okay, let me see. Somebody asked me any resources you recommend for passing the CISSP. So the resources that I used for the CISSP was the official guide for the CISSP. You want to get a guide. You don't have to be the official guide, but that's what I used. You want to get more than one source. All right. More than one source is what I would highly recommend. And I would also recommend something with lots of questions. Start off knowing the concepts. Understand, it's really important that you understand the concepts. Don't what a lot of people do. Let me just it's controversial to talk about, but what some people do is just go on what's called there's a bunch of ways you could cheat, and they'll have some of the answers to the questions on some of these cybersecurity IT tests. The problem with that is if you're trying to get in this field and stay, at some point you're going to have to understand the concepts. And if you go and cheat and get this certification, it's just not, you're going to have to understand the concepts. So especially when you get in the field, when you get in this and people are asking you questions and they're relying on you to come up with your interpretation of the answer, they're relying on you to understand it. So first step, understand the concepts, get a book, $20 book, whatever, $30 book, and just go through it, understand the concepts. What I did was I took the concepts from the book, I translated them into notes, and then I studied my notes. And I did that for like a year in small bite-sized chunks. So that's one way you can do it. That's one way, right? Definitely have more than one resource. Use videos, use audiobooks, use just paper books, use make yourself flashcards. Best resource is going to be the actual site. The site is ISC2 squared. It is the best resource because it has all of the domains that you're going to have to focus on. It has each one of the domains that you're going to have to focus on. And you want to focus on those domains to pass this test. That's what you want to do. And use different resources. Use a book with tons of questions. What you want to do is focus on a book that has lots of questions in it, because you want to train your mind to answer the questions. The hardest part about the CISSP is the damn questions, because they'll have like 4 questions. One you'll be able to throw out, 4 answers, and that one you'll be able to throw out, but 3 of them will be very similar, and you'll have to find the one that's the most right. That's the hardest part of the test. So you want to practice test, get as many practice tests as you can, and just beat them into your brain after you understand the concepts. Go to ISC2 squared. It breaks down each one of the domains. Study each one of the domains. And then once you understand, you have a grasp of each one of the domains and what you need to know, then just inundate yourself with information using videos, using audiobooks, and using tons of questions. That's the best resources. I mean, that for me, it really worked to do that. And go to ISC2 squared is the best resource for you. And here's what it looks like right here. ISC2 squared, download. You can sign up like right now, even without any kind of ISC2 squared certification. You can sign up and be a member of this site for free. Then they don't charge you for this to be a member. And then you can also get the all of the domains for ISC2 squared or wherever certification you're taking. So hope that helps you out. Somebody asked me, you should do a reaction video. You should do a reaction video of one of her jobs to give your opinion on these jobs. I used to do this. I used to do reaction videos of different jobs that popped up. Um, they weren't, I can't say they weren't super popular. No, I can't. They were not super popular, so I don't do them. I used to do those. Like I'd see a job and then I'd dissect the job and then I mean, they're on some of my old videos are there. So let me see. Let me see here. All right. Somebody said, I'm graduating with my associate's degree in cyber next year. Congratulations. Would you advise me to start looking for an internship? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, what I advise all students to do is number one, start right now. Don't wait until you get your degree. Start right now to first of all, put it on your profile. That's something you can do right now. There's no excuses. Go right now. If you don't have a profile, start making one right now. Build out your resume, upload your resume to LinkedIn. Don't stop just at LinkedIn. Make one on Dice, one on Monster. If you're in the US, then the top 3 places to put your resume, that you must put your resume and profile, is Dice, Monster, and LinkedIn. Not necessarily in that order, but other ones will be Career Builder and Indeed.com. ZipRecruiter's a good one. And any other ones. I put it on 10 different sites. And right now, look for internships, look for jobs, try to build up your experiences right now before you even get your degree. And on your profile, you can say when you get your degree, you're going to get your degree in 2025, 2024, whatever the date is. Yep. Somebody says start now. Yes, start now. Do not wait. Even if you have no knowledge, yes, start right now. Just being a student, working your way towards a degree is a huge advantage that you have over some other, because that tells the employers that you are you're in to win. Like, you're not messing around. This is something that you're making this a career. So right now is when you want to start advertising yourself at this very moment. All right, let me see here. Got some other people jumping in. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm just a regular worker. I'm a regular cybersecurity guy, and I just share my experience, my perspective on this field, how to get into it, what to do. That's all I do. It's stuff I share on this channel is just my perspective. I just didn't see enough of it when I was starting out, and it would have been really helpful for me to hear somebody talk about it. Like, honestly talk about it. Tell me the pros and the cons. Don't tell me just the good stuff about making $100,000 flying over. Tell me everything. Tell me your perspective. I wish somebody would have done that for me. So I decided I'm going to do it. And I just started making a podcast because people kept asking me more and more questions. And I enjoy answering questions. I enjoy teaching. It's something cool to do. And also it pays me. So why not? Let me see if there's another question here, comment. Is it a good idea to use generative AI to help you interpret frameworks, controls, policies that you find difficult to understand? Yes, it is. I do it. I'm doing it right now. If there's some concept that I can understand, I use it a lot with technical stuff. There's something I just can't understand, I need another perspective, and I don't have anybody else around. I have a peer to bounce that off of. I'll go to a generative AI and then type it in there. Hey, what about this? I'm having trouble with this. Here's the environment I'm on. What kind of issues do I have? If nothing else, it leads you down the right path to ask the right questions. So it would work for a framework. Now, one thing I would I would warn you against is that AI is not. It's kind of painted to be some kind of cure-all that's going to either make us into a utopia or destroy all things. And it's really just a tool, right? It's a very good tool, but it's just a tool. Haven't been using it a lot over the past couple years, so it's just a great tool, right? It's just a great tool, and it's really good for bouncing ideas off of it. And it one of the best things about it is that you'll put something in there that you don't understand, you want more validation or you want more information on, and it will guide you down the right path to ask better questions, to go deeper down the rabbit hole and understand things in a better way. It's almost like having a way. It's like having another person's perspective at your fingertips. It's just amazing to me. But it's not a cure-all, and it doesn't have. Sometimes it's absolutely wrong, and that's why you don't want to use just generative AI because it hallucinates. Like, it'll just make shit up. It will make shit up and talk about it very confidently. It's terrifying. So take something you know a lot about, something that nobody can tell you nothing about because you've been whittling wood for 30 years, so nobody can tell you anything about it. Like, take one thing that you know very, 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 very well and ask it questions about that thing and you'll see that it's not right all the time. It's a little bit off sometimes. It gets the general stuff usually right, but sometimes it'll just make shit up. So you got to be careful with it. So what you want to do is I'll put it in the generative. Like, I'll have a question about a vulnerability and I'll be like, man, what is that? I don't understand. Can you explain this in a way that I can understand it? And then I'll put it in the generative AI, right? Explain it like I'm 5. Here's the vulnerability. Here's the CVE. Could you explain this? How could we fix this? Is there what can we do with this? Like, it'll come up with some stuff, right? And I'll say, that sounds right. But like I said, it hallucinates. So then I'll go to the actual authoritative source. I'll go to the vendor site and I'll get more information. And I'll validate the information that is saying with the actual vendor's information. Another thing you can do is take the vendor's information and put it in there and say, simplify this. Explain it to me like I'm 5. Simplify this thing so I can understand it. And it'll do it. And then it just gives you a different perspective to understand it more completely. And it's just like, that is so valuable. It's so valuable, especially as an IT person, to understand why and in a deeper way what's going on, and then build your information from there. So it's so good for not only frameworks, controls, and policies, but like helping you to build a policy better, helping you to think about things you didn't think about before. But don't rely too much on it because sometimes it gets shit wrong. And another thing is sometimes it's pulling information from other places sometimes. And so one of the things I noticed, I was writing a book about risk management framework, right? Another book about risk management framework. And I was asking it questions about risk management framework, and it was telling me old frameworks. It was referencing frameworks from 3 years ago. And I was like, this is wrong. And then I had to correct it. I was like, hey, this is from 3 years ago. You should be pulling from Rev 2. And then say, oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, you got to add this. I'm like, yo, you almost like you gonna talk me off a cliff. So just be aware, it's not a cure-all. It's not going to cure cancer yet. One day it will, but it definitely has problems, and it needs your guidance, right? It's a very good symbiotic relationship between humans and AI, but it's not great by itself. It can lead you straight off a cliff by itself. And I can only imagine how tricky that gets if you're dealing with like medical issues or like something serious, like they're folding proteins or something like that, like DeepMind is doing. So that took a lot of guidance. Like somebody who really knew what they were doing had to guide it in the right direction to get it to that point. So to where it's figuring out how to cure cancer or stuff like that. They're doing some really cool stuff with AI, but it's a human touch and guide in the right direction is it's incredible. It's like magic if you can work with it. But by itself, it's a hammer is only as good as the person who's wielding it. You know what I'm saying? It's a tool. Let me see. Let me see. Got some more. As for contract jobs overseas, how can you find a company to support your clearance? I'll go I'll go today. They're out there. So they do exist. You just got to find the right. Let me see if I can find one real quick. I would go to Indeed. I'm going to try to find one live right now. I'm going to indeed.com. I'm going to show my screen on YouTube. And if you happen to be watching me or you see me on TikTok or whatever, I'll explain what I'm seeing. So first, what I'm doing is I'm showing my screen here. And I could be wrong. Let's explore together here. I'm on indeed.com and I'm gonna check a couple of them. Here's indeed.com, and I'm gonna look for a job in another country here. Let's just first look for a job in another country, then we'll look for something that's gonna pay for the clearance. So indeed.com, I think only looks in the US. So first of all, I think we need to go to Indeed in another country. No, wait. Let's start with .com. Okay. I'm gonna say IT, Middle East. Middle East. This is probably totally wrong, but so I went in Indeed.com and I typed IT Middle East and I'm getting Oakland, Virginia, Florida. Okay, so this is not gonna help us. Let me try this. Let me go to. I know I've seen these jobs before. That's why I'm doing this. Okay, I'm just bear with me here. So now what I'm going to Google and I'm going to type in IT jobs Middle East. If you didn't know, Google has a job aggregator built into it. It's pretty cool. So now what I'm doing is I'm looking at the job aggregator on Google. If jobs anything gives you this, it brings it right up. So now I'm clicking on IT jobs in Middle East 2024 that just popped up here. Here we go. And it took me to a site called Bait, BAYT.com. And it has a job in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, a job in UAE, a job in Dubai, a job in Riyadh, Qatar, a job in Saudi Aramco has a ton of jobs out there, and they pay very well, and you don't need a clearance for those. Oh, I see one that's very familiar to me. I think that this is one of the jobs that I had before right here, because this one's in Al Kuwait. Yeah, this might be the job that I had. Make sure that there's nothing in here. This might be employers, private sector. Nope, that's not it. Real estate. Nope, that's not it. What else can we do here? Let me see. What else can we do here? I'm looking at jobs in Middle East, and I'm looking for employers. This is on Bait, but I'm gonna look for all the jobs. So I went back to Google Job Aggregator, and I'm gonna click jobs because I want a bigger, wider scope here. Okay, and what it did was it took me to IT jobs Middle East, near Middle East. All right. So this we're on the right track here. Now these are all jobs in the Middle East. Now probably what we want to do, and there's not, let me see, how many jobs are there? Jobs Middle East. Let me tighten up my search here. IT jobs. Let me see if I could just type in IT jobs and search the Middle East. So what I did was I switched it to just IT jobs. Now I'm going to go to locations, and I want it to be in. It's looking for all the cities that are near me: Colorado Springs, Fort Carson, Pueblo, like all the places. Denver's looking everywhere, but we want jobs in the Middle East. So how do we find that? Let's see. Located in Middle East. All right, I'm trying to. Okay, now we're back on Middle East, but it has that term Middle East in there, which I think is limiting my search down to only a few. So let me see here. KSA, Deutsche Bank. I'm seeing jobs, just so you know. Even though my search sucks, I am seeing jobs here, but it's not what I'm looking for. All right, let me try something totally different. I'm going to go back to Google, and I'm going to search a job I know exists right now. Kuwait. They contact me every now and then. All right, IT jobs, Kuwait. I know this job exists. Let me see. Information specialist, school, international school. This might be a teaching job. IT officer, service desk in Kuwait. I'm looking for something I know exists and then build from there. That's kind of the thinking that I'm using right now. Fitness. I'm looking for, there's a bunch of local job for banks and stuff, which is cool, but I'm looking for a specific one. I think this is it. Found it. All right. So here's, I don't know how much of this I could show, to be honest with you. I feel bad showing this, actually. Okay. Anyway, here's how you find them. You'll type in IT jobs, country you want to go to, right? I don't know how much of this I want to read on here because I don't know. I don't feel good about this. I found the job that one of the jobs I worked at, and the place and the location and everything they need and everything. It has everything. Here it is right here. If you happen to be watching, this is the job. So these guys might actually get you this one right here might actually get you a clearance. But how do you find more? How would you go about finding more jobs like this? Let me see. Let me type in overseas. I'm on Google still. Jobs overseas. Just going to type in overseas because they got tons of jobs, not just in Kuwait. Indeed, IT specialist overseas. Some of these you might not even need a security clearance. Some of them they'll need one, but they're gonna have to get you one or update the one you have. So you have to go through these and figure out which ones will do that. That means you might have to contact them. Here's one for the U.S. Department of Justice. I don't know if this one's actually overseas. El Paso. Why is this coming up overseas? No. I'm not sure. Remote. Okay, these are all remote jobs. That's why. So let me see here. So what you would want to do. So what I did, let me just tell you what I did. So what I went to is Google, and I typed in IT jobs. Just, you want it to be as broad as possible. That's why I typed in IT jobs. I didn't type in cybersecurity analyst. I didn't type in. You want to be You don't necessarily have to use IT jobs. Cyber jobs might even be better. But you want it to be broad because you want to open up your horizons on what to find. And then type in, you could do Middle East. You could do a specific place where you know that there's jobs. Like what I did was I just typed in Kuwait. I found the job. I found the job that I worked. Some of these guys, they need people so bad that they will pay for your clearance so that you can go work there. They'll get your clearance before you leave. You have to have a clearance. They'll pay for your clearance and then get you there on and you'll be on a contract for a year or whatever, 6 months or whatever it is. And then you'll go ahead and go there. But yeah, they do exist. But you got to look for them. And they're not just in Kuwait, by the way. They're in Riyadh. They're in all over the Middle East, all over Riyadh. They're in Saudi Arabia. They're in Oman. They're in and they're in Southeast Asia. You got some in Korea. Look for places where there's a U.S. presence. Not necessarily just the bases, but also there's joint bases that are not usually listed. It's easy to find U.S. bases, but some joint bases are not easy to find because the base isn't a U.S. base. It's owned by that government. And then the U.S. is just working with them and they work on that base. And the place that I was at, that was what happened. That was what was happening. So look where places where there's a U.S. presence. Department of State is there. The Department of State is everywhere, actually. Department of State, Department of Defense, places like that are going to be your best bet. And you might not even need a clearance. You might not even need a clearance. A top secret clearance. You might not need a top secret clearance. They're going to have to do a background check. But that doesn't always mean it's a TS or a secret. It could be a public trust or it could just be a background check. But that's one way to find some of these jobs. All right. So let me see what else we got here. Okay, somebody said, I meant you should do a reaction video on one of the overseas jobs that Simone B's give your opinion on about it. That's a great idea. Maybe I should do that. Because she's got like 500,000 subscribers or something. She's killing it right now. Thank you for your work, sir. Working on my CCNA. Now glad I'm able to run across your content. Well, congrats on working on that. CCNA is fire. I used to have one. Got me a couple jobs when I kept it good, when I kept it fresh. It's one of the best certifications I've ever had. I'm an enterprise IT support engineer, wondering how you feel identity and access work will transfer. Identity and access work will transfer. Identity and access is actually part of the security control family. So the way that if you're trying to get into GRC work, it's dovetails perfectly into GRC work because identity and access controls for NIST 800, for ISO 27001, for CIS V8, for PCI DSS, all of them have some component of identity and authentication and identity and access control. All of them have those three or some combination of those. So if you've ever written a policy, if you've ever written a procedure about identity and access control, if you've ever had to interpret a law, a standard, something like that, to integrate that process, to implement that in identity and access solution into your organization, then you want to put that on your resume, and you want to identify what you were using, what the organization that you are using, what the organization is using to explain eh, to explain to input to put in place the identity and access work. So, okay, let me explain it in a more clear way. So, an organization, they don't usually just do anything, right? They don't just do, okay, hey, we know we have to have a firewall. Let's just grab this random firewall from Walmart. Let's just go to Best Buy and buy this, and then let's put it in place and install it, right? Unless it's a mom and pop or something like that. But if you're in a larger or medium-sized organization, they have to follow certain laws and certain rules. They can't just go to Best Buy, buy a router or a switch or a hub or whatever and put it in their network and then start firing it up and start doing whatever. Mom and pops can do that. If you have your own business or whatever in your house, you can do that. But as soon as you start dealing with people's public information, hell, if you are processing people's credit cards, you're supposed to be under PCI DSS. As soon as you get a merchant account, you have to abide by something called PCI DSS, which has its own rules on how to deal with identity and access controls. So right away, you have to do a policy. You have to do procedures on that from that policy. And then you have to meet the controls in PCI DSS to make sure that customer credit card information is protected. And that right there is transferable to GRC, because that's GRC stuff that you're doing. The policies, the procedures. How are you taking the laws and the rules of that industry or standard and implementing them throughout the organization? I hope that makes sense, more sense than what I was babbling before. And that's how you need to put that. You need to put that, explain that into your resume to show, like, here's how I understand PCI DSS. And PCI DSS is just an example. There's many other ones. There's NIST 800. There's NIST CSF. There's ISO 27001. There's COBIT. There's a bunch of HIPAA. There's a bunch of them that you would do the same thing I just explained, but for that industry. I hope that makes sense. Does a non-accredited cybersecurity degree matter looking for jobs? It matters in that hopefully you got something out of it. Like, hopefully you learned something. Hopefully whatever document you got from them at least taught you something. Whenever I talk about the importance of a degree, it's very important that it's from an accredited college. And the reason why is because organizations don't typically care if you got it from Yale or Harvard or the University of Texas. What they care about is it's a real college. Real meaning accredited. So it does matter if it's accredited, because hell, maybe they won't look. Maybe you say, "Oh, I got a bachelor's degree from unaccredited college XYZ," right? You're not gonna say it's unaccredited, but you're gonna say, "Hey, I got a," and then they probably won't even call it a bachelor's degree of science or art. They'll call it a BS, and it means something else. You know what I mean? You know the bottom line is it needs to be accredited. Hopefully you got something out of it, at least learn something from it, to where you can take a certification, because a certification is going to take you further than a document from an unaccredited college. Hopefully you got something out of it. Like, maybe they had labs where you were actually setting up the firewall and you know how to use Palo Alto like the back of your hand. Hopefully they had equipment to where you actually got to touch the Tenable scanner and you actually got to scan 1,500 systems, or in a virtual environment or something. You could put that on your resume. Hopefully you got something out of it, because I could tell you this, most big companies that are going to pay you six figures will look at whether or not you have a degree. And if it sounds crazy, they will look at that degree. They'll be like, okay, well, what college is this? From where? And they'll check to see. And if it's not accredited, they'll be like, nope, he doesn't have a bachelor's degree, or nope, he doesn't have an associate's degree. So it does matter. Yes, it does matter. Let me see here. I'm only going to answer a few more, guys. I've been going for about 2 hours. I will answer a couple more. We'll chit chat about a couple more of these. A reaction videos, Simone B's. Yeah, that's a great idea, man. Thank you for that. Some of the contracting companies are General Dynamic Information Technologies and Mentech, etc. Yeah, those are the kind of companies that will that have overseas that have overseas positions for you to get. There's quite a few of them, but those are the guys who get the prime contracts, and those are the guys who have the funding to actually get you that certificate, because it costs money to get that clearance, right? And those guys have the money. Like these are gigantic, multi-billion-dollar global defense companies, and they have extra cash to where they can do stuff like that. So those are the guys who are going to be paying that money to get you that clearance. Clearance jobs. Oh man, I didn't even think of that. Clearance. I thought clearance jobs required you to already have a clearance. Clearancejobs.com. But I could be wrong. Clearance jobs. Check clearancejobs.com. Somebody on TikTok asked me about, hey, where can I find an organization who will send me overseas and get me a clearance? And somebody on YouTube, on LinkedIn, just said, hey, check clearance jobs. And they also mentioned the use of General Dynamics and Mantech, and other ones, SAIC, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin. All those guys, they're usually a prime contract holder, and they're the ones who have enough cash to actually bring you in and take time to get you the clearance. Another place is Clearance Jobs. You got to check it, because I thought that you had to already have a clearance for clearancejobs.com. Check clearancejobs.com, and they might have jobs where they will get you a clearance. I'm not sure. I'm looking at it right now, and I don't recall. So check that, clearancejobs.com. Let me see here. I'll take a couple more. Should I give up on GRC or just go do network engineering? I would say Mr. Hamilton, depends on what you want to do. What do you want to do? Are you at a crossroads in your career where you're tired of GRC and you want to do something different? Or you've beaten your head against the wall because you just can't get paid enough with GRC and you're trying to level up and network engineering looks fun? Go for it. I mean, I did it. So I got bored with GRC at one point, and I just wanted to be more technical and more hands-on. So I tried something completely different. I tried cybersecurity analyst work, and I had a blast. Now, I eventually went back into GRC because I get paid way more doing it. But yeah, I mean, it depends on what you just look into your own heart. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Ask yourself that question. Where do I, in 5 years from now, where do I want to be? And don't be like, oh, I want to be a billionaire. And of course, everybody, listen, with your career, where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself doing in your career in the next 5 years? Are you a high level CIE, Cisco certified, Juniper certified, hardcore network engineer who's making six figures? Are you a GRC guy who's prepped and primed to do management work? Are you already doing management work and GRC work? What do you want to do? And for what organization? Do you want to be in the public sector or the private sector? Do you want to be a GS worker, a private, in the private industry, you want to be working for the FANG organizations like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, Netflix, making 200,000 plus the stock options that they give you. Like, what? Ask yourself, like, where do you want to be in 5 years, and go for it. Do it. Take the first steps by taking action. Let me see. And I'm going to take this last couple questions here. Somebody said, security expert says, regarding non IT related degrees, a non IT degree plus a relevant certification is a good combo. These folks are typically better communicators than your average person with a degree in computer science. It really depends, but I've seen some people in this industry have a non-technical degree and a certification and be very, very sharp. I met a dude, one of the sharpest dudes I've ever met. He had a degree. Actually, the guy was a cook. So this is a crazy story. So the dude was a cook. I wrote about this one of these guys in my book. He was a cook. He's a real person, by the way. He was a cook, and he did that for like 5 years because it was just he cooks really well, and he did it for 5 years where he ran his own business, and he said the restaurant business was too hard, and he ended up going back to school, finishing his technical degree, uh, and and it's making six figures. I don't know what he's doing now these days, but he started off as a cook. But as far as that, doesn't really, it's not probably a good example because he had a degree, so he had a technical degree. But I've worked with a couple of my peers had non-technical degrees and like a CISSP or Security Plus or whatever. And really, what got them to this place was their experience. Most of those guys who had a non-technical degree, most of those dudes who had a degree in liberal arts or in social, some psychology or something like that, most of those guys, what I noticed is that they had a lot of experience, or they had some experience that the organization really needed, whether it was a lot or a little, whatever, but they had something that the organization really needed. And so they were really sharp because they weren't going off their degree, they were going off their experience. And they just happened to have, not they didn't happen to have, they got it on purpose. They got the Security Plus or their CISP on purpose, to match it, validated their experience. So that's my experience with people with a non-technical degree. They normally are heavy-handed on experience. And so they knew the industry, they knew how to, of course, they knew how to talk, because a lot of technical guys, I will agree with you on that. A lot of very technical guys, um, not very good communicators and not very emotionally intelligent. No offense, but very, very smart with math or logic or something, but can't talk to people. I just It's just something I noticed. I don't know if it's a personality thing or what, but is the ITF certification worth it? Is that IT fundamentals from CompTIA? It's not gonna get you a job, but, if you don't know anything at all, it's really a good place to start. If you're slow on the uptake with technical stuff, you've never been a nerd, you were a high school cheerleader or a jock or something, and you're just not a technical person, you don't configure your phone, you don't build systems to play games on, you're just not technical at all, you don't know the jargon, you can go ahead and look into the terminology. It's gonna help you with the terminology, it's gonna help you with, like, learning the landscape of what's going on. It's not gonna land you a job. So, I would say if you really, really don't know anything, you're coming in super fresh on this, then ITF might be worth your time. But to get a job, no. No, it's not gonna get you a job. It's it's too easy. I mean, it's too not easy, it's too fundamental. And I'm not trying to take you out of it. I'm just saying, uh, I'm just telling you what it is, what's going on with it. All right. I think well, I have a lot of questions here, guys. I appreciate all the holy crap, it's a lot. Um, okay, last question from Lily. What certificate would you recommend for someone interested in artificial intelligence security? Probably cloud. This is off the top of my head, but I'm noticing that most artificial intelligence is being built on cloud technologies, and the way the industry seems to be going is I don't know if you've heard of it, but Amazon has something called Bedrock, and they're building AI on top of it. So it looks like what's gonna happen is pure speculation on my part, but it looks like what's gonna happen is Google just watch what happens because they keep doing this kind of stuff. It's a pattern. Google and Amazon are competing with each other. And what they've been doing is in the cloud space, they're the top dogs. And now what they're doing is they're competing in AI. And AI is being built on top of their cloud infrastructure. And so Amazon has something called Bedrock. Let me just make sure I'm not lying to you. Amazon Bed is it called Bedrock? Bedrock. Yeah. It's called Amazon Bedrock, and they have generative AI built on top of it, and they're marketing it towards other B2B. So cloud might be a good place for you to go. An AI, an AWS certification or a Google Cloud certification might be a good place for you to go. But I wouldn't discount anything like a Security Plus to get your foot in the door. A Security Plus would be good to get the common body of knowledge in your head to understand like what are some of the things you need to protect on a network, what are things you need to protect on a internet working device like a switch or a router, what kinds of things do you need to protect on a server. You Those are basic things that's gonna Security Plus is gonna help you with. So the Security Plus will be good, and AWS to start to build your cloud knowledge would be good, and and then and any of the security certifications like a CISP, a CISA, any of those would be because it's gonna allow you to understand like the basics, um, common body of knowledge for security and some of the best security practices that are in this industry. And so those are the ones I would recommend. I think that AWS and Google are going to come up with some kind of artificial intelligence certification that's based off cloud. I think that's what's going to happen next. So, and it's probably going to include machine learning too, because machine learning and AI is getting more and more and more important for cybersecurity. All right, guys, that's it. I'm out of here. Thank you for watching. I appreciate everybody. Great questions. I will see you guys next week. And if you guys didn't know, we do this once a week on Saturday at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So any questions you have, or if you're interested in cybersecurity whatsoever, and somebody's going to break it down in plain English in layman's terms, because everybody's not an IT professional. Some people are in other industries. I speak in layman's terms. So I'll talk to you guys later.